Oh, hello there, Internet. I am Mike Makes Stuff. I've been working with CaveGeek on his Kickstarter to do the 12 sets, or the 12 pieces from Hevelius's Zodiac map, the 12 major astrological symbols. And he got funded, and so we're doing these limited editions. The image you see right now is the original. It's not a limited edition. The limited editions have a little bit more pop to them. They've got star maps and stuff like that, and labels. So we're going to go and get those, and we're going to do that. If you're coming from Cave Geek's Twitch stream, you probably are used to a little bit more interaction. My streams very rarely have anyone watching, so I'm going to check the chat periodically, but it may be a little bit less. I also don't have access to whatever he uses to play music in the background, so I'm going to listen to my music and you can just kind of follow along. But if you have any questions, let me know. I will walk you through the process as I'm working on this. And give me any feedback you've got. I'd love to stream more. Usually I do more illustration stuff, but photo editing is always fun, and this is part of the process. Just going to plug my music in, and we'll get started, and I'll check on the chat periodically. So just so you have a frame of reference, this is what the limited editions look like. If you haven't seen the Kickstarter yet, you should go check it out. tinyurl.com/zodiac maps will take you right there. But as you can see, the central figure pops out just a little bit more, and we've got all these really great orbits and the labels all in there, and it looks pretty believable. So what I'm going to walk you through is how I achieve that and the process that's going to be performed on every last one of them. I'm just going to move this over here so I don't accidentally go there again. It's a different project. So what I use is basically an adjustment layer. It's this dark blue. Right, blue is going to be the complement to brown or orange, and so it kind of neutralizes and darkens, but kind of keeps it in the same family. It's actually quite toned down for this. But what I do, like in this one, is that everything else receives that effect except for the central figure that Cave has painted and all the stars. So I need to go and mask that out. And the way I do that is by painting the areas. Make sure we got a pressure sensitivity turned off. Flow is all the way up. Great. Test this. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit because I do want to see when I'm going over the area, you know, bleeding out. A lot of this is pretty fussy work, getting those edges kind of refined. They've all got that micro texture and all that kind of stuff. Um, so thankfully, it's a fairly subtle transition, and it's just kind of bringing something forward. Because getting the edges perfect is damn close to impossible. But we can do pretty well. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go through and select the biggest areas and fill them in quickly, and then I'll narrow it down smaller and erase and brush and erase and brush and that kind of happy crap. The figure on this one is actually bigger than it is on most of the other ones and takes up a lot of space. So this whole process is, I think, going to have a really interesting effect on this one. Libra's a lot smaller. Aquarius is pretty big. Aquarius is close. The other ones are generally smaller. There's a lot of horsebutt in this one. Okay. Good. Since I don't have a graphics card, streaming slows down my computer just enough to make me pretty error prone. Gives you an idea of just how high resolution these photos are, though. Look at all those fibers. Look at his weird little eye. He looks very concerned about something. Cave would be happy to know that these straight lines are as much a pain in the ass for me as they are for him. I've never received my acceptance, so despondent. Can never write his long correspondence. I am in Congress and received dishonest responses. I am beyond comprehension of that nonsense. If you saddle up, attack the British horses. I shoot back, we have resorted to eating our horses. Old merchants deny us equipment assistance. We take British muddies who sing a song of sixpence. 16 tents full of dysentery, dying deaths and dilettantes and deserters in the distance. You justify your existence. Indigenous infants. Unite these states, give them stakes in our resistance. You got no influence in our, you fucking skinflints. Don't engage, strike by night. Sorry for the seizure-inducing rotations. Here we are. Look at where you started. Don't you alive is a miracle? In life that would be enough. And if you're started, you can tell your mind, or a fragment of your mind. Alright, I think our man horse looks pretty good. So, now I gotta go and get the rest of the stars. And there is a sky full of stars. I don't know if that qualifies as a pun. I think that's just a terrible joke. It's not even really a joke, it's just a reference. Pretty sure that the one viewer I see on YouTube is just like a courtesy viewer for me being logged in. So I'm mostly just talking to myself. Which isn't any different from what I do the rest of the time. Except I don't always do it out loud. And I rarely do it on camera. I don't think these are stars. They're not painted gold. Everybody's got arrows. So you may be asking yourself, Mike, why are you painting out all of this? Can't you use the lasso tool or delete and erase straight from your color adjustment layer? And the answer is, of course I could. But painting it and using that to make a layer mask lets me paint the mask back later and make small adjustments very quickly. If I erase from the other layer, I have to paint things in and out in a far more kind of comprehensive way. I don't think this is a star either. I think this is just a dimple on the skin. Here's a sneaky little star. It's interesting that this whole crown is supposed to be a thing, but this appears to be the only thing that indicates that, and these are just a bunch of random. Early astronomers used a lot of creative license. Okay, so we've got all of those there. All right, and then we do a select similar, select inverse, layer, hide selection. Look at that! Right? Now we've got this really strong popping kind of thing, and it makes it much easier to come back in and adjust some of these edges. Oops, we want to do the other way. Make this nice and small. In fact, let's make my eraser something with a little bit of a softness. Ooh! So if I want to do it pixel by goddamn pixel. You'll be back. Soon you'll see. You'll remember you belong to me. You'll be back. Time will tell. You'll remember that I served you well. Oceans rise, empires fall. We have seen each other through it all. And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. I normally wouldn't sing on stream, but there's nobody watching. You say my love is draining and you can't go on. Can't hit that note. Be the one complaining when I am gone. No, don't change the subject. 'Cause you're my favorite subject. Sweet, submissive subject. And loyal, royal subject. You'll be back like before. We'll fight the fight and win the war. For your love, for your praise. And I'll love you till my dying days. When you're gone, I'll go mad. So don't throw away this thing. Alright. That looks pretty tight. And then what I gotta go back and do is turn this down to 32%. And now it's pretty darn close to the reference, but there's a lot of pop on that figure in the stars now. Really, can you see the difference? Original, this one. We went back and forth a long time to kind of find one that worked without changing it too much. To your eyes and the sky's the limit, I'm helpless. Down for the count and I'm drowning in them. Alright, so here's the next part. Oops, nope. You gotta put this sucker in. And we need to map all the original stuff. And so this part can be a little tricky because I need to match the scale Cave used pretty closely. So sometimes what I'll try and do is try and get up here. And then of course, it doesn't help that there's always some distortion with the skin. So it's a matter of getting it as close as possible. Sometimes Photoshop likes to help, and sometimes it's just like, nah. Alright, I feel like that's pretty damn close. There's some bleed on the horse and such, but we're close. And I do this so that I can see where all the labels and the lines need to go. But as I was doing this, I realized there's actually something I missed, which is the outer layer. The border. We like the border to pop too. Basically anything that's painted. In the deepest, sweetest parts of me, pretend. Oh, hello. Hey, Los Crack. Yes, I imagine there will be some buffering, given the... I don't have a graphics card, just a super fast processor, so my streams can be a wee bit jumpy until I get that remedied. I was in the process of getting ready to order one, and then Bitcoin kind of took off and artificially inflated the value of graphics cards, so it's made it pretty unaffordable, especially given how often I stream. Welcome back, second viewer. Feel bad because you guys are tuning in for what is easily the most tedious and uninteresting part of this process. Yes, Greg, I know who it is. You've been using that email forever. I actually was going to ask you if you wanted to grab lunch today because I was at Government South, but my thing at Government South only lasted an hour, and I was back in the car at 10:30, so it didn't make a lot of sense. How are you doing, ma'am? I'm doing pretty well. I was at Government South for a grant hearing, so that is always exciting. Um, and I'm waiting on a deposit to clear into my bank account that will grant me the achievement of professional comic book illustrator, a project I'm working on for the IU School of Medicine. So, still a long ways from making an entire living off of artwork alone, but that's that's a badge I've been wanting to wear for a while. And select inverse. And anytime you want to talk about those life things, feel free to message me on Google or Facebook or wherever it is. You know, be glad to grab a beer with you or just chat or lunch or whatever. Life happens, but it's always nice to have somebody help you go through it. I only really see your updates when you post your streaming, and I'm terrible and don't really watch very much streaming, period. So I have not been checking in on that, but I'd be glad to catch up with you. Alright, so the masking and the clearing looks good. Just checking on some areas to make sure that they were catching light organically, not as a result of the mask, but it looks like we're good. So now it's time to do the lines. And I've set up this, this folder with all of the, oh, you know what, you probably can't see it. No, you can't see my layers. But I have set up a folder with all of the special adjustments that I want to make. So it'll take my lines and it'll put a bevel and emboss on them. It'll do that to my text. So what I need to do now is start drawing those lines. Yeah, I'd much rather come and hang out with someone than, yeah, there's just so many things that I don't, like, I'm not into spectator anything. So even when I watch my clients' streams, it's mostly to get a feel for what my client's brand is or something like that, more than it is for actually the content. Okay. So I need that, but I need to turn it down. Great. So you see that makes this brown line in here that's got a bevel and emboss on it. These lines need to be so confident, and it's such a pain in the ass. I apologize for all the rotating. I'm sure it's disorienting. Thanks. I thought it was kind of an interesting process. I need to update my streaming setup so you can actually see some of the other tools I'm using. Um, and but you should so the core image here is actually like this is something that has depth. My client CaveGeek, who I've linked to a couple of times, he burns these into leather. So what I'm doing is I'm taking it and I'm trying to make it like this, where it pops out a little bit more and has all the labels and everything, but to make it look like those labels were part of the original drawing. Doing text this small, doing lines like this are really challenging in that burn medium because the skin distorts. So this is me editing those things back into place. This line's going to be a pain in the butt. And then what I do is I just go ahead and delete anywhere that it crosses with the figures. Which applications do you use? I don't. Um, I don't have an aquarium anywhere in the house. That's really funny. I may need to adjust the audio capture settings. That's maybe a little better. Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Okay, yeah, I have no idea what you're hearing bubbling because don't have an aquarium. Yeah, I definitely need to mess with all of this more if I plan on um, doing more of it. Nope. Well, no, that's not what I wanted to do. No, I don't think that's going to work. All right. I think I just need to redraw those lines, unfortunately. They're way too thick. Which means doing the same boring work again. Okay, that looks like it's about the right thickness. That's much better. Much better. It's not you. It's gotta be me. I can see it buffering on the stream thing. It's probably. I mean, my stream health is green, but I gotta think it's my video card. OBS? But it seems to freak out a little bit when I do things like rotate the canvas and initialize the text tool. I wasn't intending to initialize the text tool, at least the last time, but everything seems to slow down when I do. Yep, video bitrate is 2500. I just pulled out a huge clump of hair. So what I do for this is now I go in and write the labels, and then we'll actually move them into the folder that bevels and embosses afterwards. just like that, just by dropping all of them into this folder, they get the bevel and emboss, and they get the color overlay. It makes them look like this. Now, looks like the color overlay needs to be adjusted. It's a little dark. And then I need to move some of them so that they don't look quite so disruptive to what's going on here. There's just too much going on there. It won't look believable that the label is there with the skin rippling so much. Alright, that looks a lot more believable. I'm not really happy with the scutum sobiescanum, something like that. And this plot line is covering scarf. I'm going to try getting rid of these areas on the aurora here. I feel like they look disruptive. That does look better. I'm going to drop it in the same spot, but turn that layer off. So, I think this is where it's going to sit for now. I got to talk to the client about these two. I'm kind of thinking about just getting rid of them. And maybe move this guy. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I have to editorialize a little bit, but overall, I think it looks fairly believable and a good addition to the set. We're now 1/3 of the way completed. The Kickstarter ends in 3 days or so, something like that. I can't tell if my dashboard is showing things accurately anymore. Um, but if you're still listening, thank you. If not, it'll be available on the YouTube channel in just a few minutes, and I will do a supercut that narrows it all down so you can just watch the work. And thanks so much. Have a great night.